The first thing you should know is that I wasn't supposed to make it. At least, not by my family standards. Every holiday, every reunion, every birthday dinner turned into some subtle comparison game where I was always the one on the losing side. My cousin Eric made partner at his law firm before 30. My sister Julia married a surgeon and boasted about their vacation home in Aspen. And me? I was the one who couldn't quite get it together. That was the phrase my mother used once, after her second glass of wine at Thanksgiving. She didn't even say it to me directly. She said it to Aunt Denise, loud enough for the whole table to hear. Everyone chuckled politely and moved on, but I caught my father's tiny wince. The kind of wince that meant, don't make a scene, just let it pass. I did. For years, I let it pass. It wasn't that I was lazy. I worked. I tried things. But I wasn't climbing ladders the way they wanted me to. I didn't have a title that fit neatly on a Christmas card brag letter. When my startup failed, the sympathy was shallow and the judgment was deep. Maybe stability is better for you, Julia suggested once, with that smile that wasn't a smile at all. When I started freelancing, no one asked questions about what I actually did. They just called it your little projects. When I stopped coming to gatherings, nobody begged me to return. And after a while, silence became easier than explaining. For almost 5 years, I barely spoke to them. No birthdays, no phone calls, no Sunday dinners, just absence. And honestly, the quiet was a relief. But silence can be deceiving. While they were busy tallying each other's accomplishments, I was grinding. Long nights, early mornings, risks that scared me half to death. I built something. Slowly, then suddenly, it worked. And one day, I realized I wasn't just getting by anymore. I was thriving. That's when the idea came. I could have simply shown up at a reunion in a nicer car, or worn a suit that whispered money instead of shouting it. But that wouldn't do. No, I wanted them to really see it. To choke on the contrast between the version of me they dismissed and the reality they never bothered to imagine. So I planned a barbecue. Simple. Classic. The kind of family event they always loved. Except this one would be hosted not at a park pavilion or a cramped backyard, but at my place. My new place. The invitations were my favorite part. Heavy cardstock, embossed edges, the kind of thing you'd expect for a wedding or a gala. Across the top, in elegant gold lettering, it read, "You're invited, family barbecue at my home." And beneath that, in smaller but unmistakable script, address, 118 Willowcrest Drive. If you've never heard of Willowcrest, that's because it's not the kind of neighborhood you just drive through. It's the kind of gated community that makes you stop at the security office, where guards check your ID before letting you pass the manicured hedges and water fountains. The kind of place where houses aren't houses, they're statements. When I sealed each envelope, I felt a satisfaction I can't quite put into words. For years, they had written me off. And now, with nothing more than an address, I was rewriting the story. The day I dropped the invitations in the mailbox, I laughed to myself. It was the kind of laugh that had been waiting years to escape. A week later, the phone call started. My mother was the first. Her voice trembled with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "Willowcrest? Are you sure that's the right address?" I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. "Positive." Julia texted me a picture of the gold lettering, adding only, "Is this some kind of joke?" Eric, who hadn't spoken a word to me since he got his second promotion, actually called. "So, barbecue, huh? That's different." "Different. Right." I kept my answers short, polite, but never gave more than necessary. Let them wonder. Let them stew. And stew they did. I imagined them passing the invitations around the dinner table, speculating, debating whether I had rented a house just for show, whether I was exaggerating again. I imagined Julia whispering to her husband, "It's probably a duplex or something." But none of them knew. None of them had any idea. The day of the barbecue approached, and I prepared the backyard like a stage before opening night. The pool sparkled. The stone patio gleamed. The outdoor kitchen, yes, an actual outdoor kitchen, was stocked with enough food to feed a small army. I ordered flowers, hired a caterer to assist, even set up a small jazz trio in the corner, because why not? If you're going to break years of silence, you might as well do it with a soundtrack. As the sun dipped low on that Saturday evening, I stood by the grill, apron on, drink in hand, waiting. The gates at the front of the neighborhood would admit them one by one, their confusion growing as they wound through streets lined with homes bigger than any hotel they'd ever stayed in. And then, finally, they'd arrive at mine. The house that proved everything they never believed about me. The first car that pulled up was my parents'. A black SUV that still smelled faintly of baby wipes and air freshener no matter how many years passed. I watched through the wide glass windows as the security guard pointed toward my driveway, and my father's hands tightened around the steering wheel. My mother stepped out first, clutching her handbag like a life vest. She turned in a slow circle, her eyes moving from the arched doorway to the stonework to the balcony above the garage. For a long moment, she didn't say a word, just pressed her lips together, like holding them shut would keep her from blurting out what she really thought. Then came Julia and her surgeon husband, pulling up in their silver Lexus. I knew she'd been expecting what? A modest townhouse. A rented space? The look on her face when she stepped out was worth every lonely year of silence. Her perfectly arched eyebrows shot upward, and she muttered something to her husband, who gave a stiff, polite nod in my direction. Eric arrived last, pulling up in a German sports car that probably cost more than the down payment on most homes. I almost laughed at the way he parked, angled just enough so everyone could see the car's logo. But when he stepped onto my driveway and looked at the mansion looming behind me, his smirk faltered for the first time in, well, ever. I greeted them casually, like they were neighbors stopping by. Glad you could make it. Drinks are in the backyard. No grand explanations. No long-winded stories about how I got here. Just calm, matter-of-fact hospitality. They followed me through the house, and I could feel their eyes darting from the vaulted ceilings to the marble floors. The hush was almost comical. No one wanted to give me the satisfaction of asking questions, but the silence said more than words ever could. When we stepped into the backyard, the scene was already alive. The trio playing soft jazz, the caterer arranging skewers on polished trays, the pool reflecting the warm glow of lanterns strung overhead. The smell of barbecue drifted through the air, familiar yet elevated, smoked brisket, grilled salmon, fresh rosemary flatbreads. My father gave a low whistle before catching himself. Nice setup, he muttered, like it pained him to admit it. My mother finally found her voice. So you live here? She asked it the way someone might ask if you really saw a UFO. Yes, I said simply. Julia, always quick to regain her footing, placed her sunglasses on top of her head and forced a smile. It's big. Must be a lot to maintain. It's manageable, I replied, turning a skewer on the grill. Her husband chuckled lightly, but it was the kind of laugh meant to cover discomfort, not amusement. Eric, meanwhile, had wandered toward the pool, his reflection rippling in the water as he tried not to look impressed. The thing about success, I realized in that moment, is that it speaks louder than explanations ever could. I didn't have to justify my years of silence. I didn't have to argue that freelancing wasn't little projects. The stone under their feet, the music in the air, the sheer presence of the place, it all did the talking for me. But the real fun began once everyone settled in with drinks. Julia perched on a cushioned patio chair like she was royalty visiting foreign soil. So what exactly is it you do now? She asked, the words dipped in sugar but sharpened with curiosity. I smiled. I build solutions. Tech-based. Started with a small project, scaled it, sold a few platforms, reinvested. Things took off. That vague, huh? She shot back, tilting her head. I shrugged. Vague keeps it simple. Besides, if I explained the whole process, I'd lose you in 10 seconds. Eric leaned forward, finally breaking his silence. So you're saying you're, what, some kind of entrepreneur now? I guess you could say that. He frowned, as if the word didn't quite fit in the box he'd built for me years ago. My mother sipped her drink, still studying the house like it might vanish if she blinked too hard. And you never thought to share any of this before? I turned toward her, my smile gentle but unshakable. I didn't think you were interested. The words landed heavier than I expected. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. My father looked down into his glass. Julia crossed her arms. The music played on, soft and relentless, like a reminder of the silence that had stretched between us for years. But then, because family always finds a way, Julia forced a laugh. Well, I suppose congratulations are in order. You've surprised us. Surprise keeps things interesting, I said, plating the brisket. What none of them knew, at least not yet, was that this barbecue wasn't just about showing them the house. It was about showing them me, the version they had ignored, the one they thought wasn't successful enough. And as the night stretched on, with laughter starting to loosen stiff postures and the smell of barbecue filling the air, I realized the real feast wasn't on the table. It was in their faces, trying and failing to mask the fact that their carefully built hierarchy had just been shaken to its core. By the time the sun slipped behind the trees, the backyard had transformed into something I'd only ever imagined during those quiet, lonely years. My family sat scattered across the patio, their plates piled with food, the jazz trio filling the air with a warmth no silence could dampen. But underneath it all, there was tension. You could feel it, like the faint buzz of an old refrigerator in the background. Always there, humming away, impossible to ignore. Julia was the first to break it. She leaned back, swirling the ice in her glass, and said, "So, you really did all this on your own?" "Yes." I didn't blink. Every risk, every late night, every decision. On my own. Eric let out a short laugh. "That's impressive. Honestly, I didn't think you had it in you." He tried to say it lightly, but the slip was there. He hadn't believed in me at all. I set my drink down slowly. "Yeah, I know." The words hung there, blunt and heavy. My mother fidgeted with her napkin. My father cleared his throat. For once, they didn't have a rebuttal. No soft insults disguised as advice. No jokes at my expense. Just silence. And for the first time, the silence didn't belong to me. It belonged to them. I stood, walked to the edge of the patio, and looked out over the glowing pool. "You know," I said, not turning around, "it used to sting. Hearing you all compare me, dismiss me, being the punchline at family dinners." The trio's music softened, as if even they wanted to hear. "But I stopped chasing your approval a long time ago. I had to, because if I'd kept waiting for you to believe in me, I'd still be waiting." I finally turned, meeting their eyes one by one. "And the truth is, I didn't need you to believe in me. I just needed to believe in myself." Nobody spoke. Julia's mouth opened, then shut again. Eric stared into his drink. My mother's face flickered with something between regret and pride, though she couldn't quite choose which one to wear. I smiled, not smug, not bitter, just calm. "So this barbecue? It isn't revenge. It isn't payback. It's just a reminder. You thought I wasn't successful enough. And maybe I wasn't back then. But now?" I gestured to the house, the lights, the music, the laughter that was finally starting to rise. "Now I don't need anyone else to tell me I made it. I know I did." For a long moment, all I heard was the soft ripple of the pool and the distant clink of glasses. Then, to my surprise, my father raised his drink. "To your success," he said quietly. My mother followed, her eyes shining in the lantern light. Julia hesitated, but lifted hers too. Even Eric joined in, though he didn't look me in the eye. We toasted, and in that simple motion, I felt something shift. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It wasn't a sudden erasure of the years I'd spent feeling like an outsider. But it was acknowledgement. And for me, that was enough. The night wound down with laughter that felt a little less forced. Stories started to flow, cautious at first, then easier as the drinks loosened everyone's shoulders. For once, I wasn't the shadow in the corner. I was the host, the center, the proof that sometimes the one you least expect can rewrite the story. As I stood by the grill, watching them relax under the glow of lanterns, I felt a quiet satisfaction settle over me. Their faces when they first saw the gold-inlaid invitation had been worth every silent year. But this moment, the one where they finally looked at me not as the family disappointment, but as someone who had built something real, this was worth everything. And for the first time in a long, long while, I wasn't waiting for their approval. I was just enjoying the barbecue.